Hi, I'm Paul Hubel, Crime File News. I'm attending a press conference with the well-known civil rights lawyer Larry Klayman. He has filed a lawsuit on behalf of an American black actor who was victimized as a result of the January 6th witch hunt that happened after the Capitol demonstration involving Trump's election and the aftermath. Anyway, he's filed a class action suit on behalf of anyone who has been victimized, and he's looking for more plaintiffs. Anyway, that's it. I hope you can enjoy the press conference, and that's it. Again, I'm Paul Hubel. The story you're about to hear might have come from the files of the Nazi Gestapo, or perhaps the East German Stasi secret police. But no, unfortunately, this story comes directly from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They have really lost trust. Wait till you hear about this tyranny.
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Klayman. I'm the chairman and general counsel of Freedom Watch. Standing next to me is my client, Siaka Massaquoi. Today, Mr. Massaquoi filed a complaint in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California against FBI Director Christopher Wray, against various FBI agents that raided his home, and against the Department of Justice generally. We also named unnamed agents because there were about 20 that raided his home. He doesn't have the name except for one. You can find the complaint that was filed at freedomwatchusa.org. And the reason that Mr. Massaquoi filed this complaint, it's a class action complaint. He did it not just for himself, but for all of those people, Americans, citizens, patriots who were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th to be there peacefully, to simply protest, not just with regard to what happened in the election and the fact that President Trump really couldn't even get a hearing, a real hearing, from even his own Supreme Court justices that threw him under the bus, but the fact that there was so much corruption in government that's built up over the years. It was a groundswell. And this was the way they let it out. They let it out. 99.9%, or maybe slightly less, were there peacefully. There were some bad people on both sides, but most people were good people. And of course, the establishment in Washington, fearful that they were the reasons for January 6th, are striking back. They're striking back, and this establishment now is in control of alleged President Biden and alleged President Kamala Harris. And I say that because no one's ever gotten to the bottom of what happened in this election. And they're using the Justice Department, my once proud alma mater. I was a trial attorney and prosecutor for the Antitrust Division. I helped break up AT&T when I was a young lawyer. They're using it as, in effect, their own private Gestapo to go out there, to break into people's houses, to cuff them, to threaten them, to arrest them, to indict them, to have judges who were very favorably disposed to them because they're part of the establishment too, keep these people in prison as they await trial. Some are thrown into solitary confinement. And some of these judges are even saying that they're not getting out on bail, these protesters, peaceful protesters, because President Trump is still out there propagating the big lie. Well, that's not the function of a federal judge. And as Jefferson said, because federal judges and Supreme Court justices are unelected, he was against Article 3 of the Constitution, and appointed basically through campaign contributions given by special interests, which are otherwise bribes, frankly. You would not get the best and the brightest on the bench. You would get those who were compromised and ultimately corrupt. And Jefferson said that because of that, ultimately, the American people would rise up every 20 years or so and shed the blood of patriots and tyrants yet again, adding what's a few thousand dead to refresh the tree of liberty. Jefferson did not want to see anybody dead or hurt, nor do I, nor does Mr. Massaquoi. We're peaceful. But this is what's going to happen unless our federal judiciary steps in to protect the American people. And we won't be part of it, but that's going to be a natural consequence. We're just a few days removed from the storming of the Bastille on July 14th. In 1789 in France, the beginning of the French Revolution. Jefferson was an architect of the French Revolution as well as the American Revolution. So he understands what can happen. So what Mr. Massaquoi did today, by using peaceful and legal recourse, suing the director of the FBI, the agents that committed this illegal raid, the FBI itself in the United States, to get redress for his grievances, for having his constitutional rights violated, for having his First Amendment rights trashed, his Fourth Amendment rights to be free of an unreasonable search and seizure trashed, to be denied right of counsel. And he'll explain to you that when the FBI came in, he asked to talk to a lawyer, and they said, you don't need any lawyer, and they interrogated him anyway, cuffed him and took him outside and treated him like a dog. That the American people need to rise up. And that's why we filed it as a class action. And once this case is certified, I hope there'll be thousands of Americans that join this class action, that were affected, that were in Washington peacefully that day. We are seeking to use legal means to seek redress for our grievances. And we pray that we will get a judge that has the courage to let this case go forward so we get to the bottom of it. Director Wray is primarily responsible for this. He's obviously been directing it. He is on the defense because Congress and the rest of the establishment hacks in Washington, on both sides of the political aisle, I might add, Democrat and Republican, have accused him of not giving them warning for January 6th. And as a result, and not doing anything during January 6th, even with regard to some of the more people that didn't act appropriately, is that he's gone on offense, and now he accuses everybody virtually in Washington of being a white domestic terrorist with racial motivations, and we must round them all up, indict them, and throw them in prison. Well, you know, that's not the role of an FBI director. He's supposed to represent us, the American people, not the special interests and those who are in charge in Washington. And Biden and Harris now are simply the rubber stamps. They're the stooges of the violent left. Nothing's happened to Antifa. Nothing's happened to those who destroyed courthouses, destroyed property, and harmed businesses throughout the last few years. But yet, it's conservatives who are in Washington, people of faith, and those who believe in the vision of our founding fathers, who are getting the full force of the FBI, which is now being used as a modern-day Gestapo. This is frightening for the American people, and frankly, it's why Mr. Massaquoi is so brave to come forward, because there are many Americans out there that just simply want to watch Sean Hannity and listen to, at the end of the show, and the Democrats say we're going to throw Granny over the cliff, be entertained, and smoke their whatever they're smoking, and or drinking wine and eating popcorn, and that's enough. It's not enough. The American people need to rise up, or we will have no country. It's already about 90% gone, and now's the time to join Freedom Watch at freedomwatchusa.org. Join our citizens' grand juries. You can go there and read about it. Join our Third Continental Congress, where we're seeking to bring together learned people, as we did on July 5th and 6th, to decide how we save the nation. The Father and the Son will only help us if we help ourselves. Our founding fathers, in the Declaration of Independence, where it said, when in the course of human events, the sovereign, the rulers, no longer represent the people, they have a right under the laws of nature and nature's God to abolish or alter that government and to form a new government by and for the people with equal rights for everyone in pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. That's a paraphrase of what Jefferson and the others wrote. They invoke divine providence, that is God. And without the divine providence, we would not have a nation. So we, the American people, must get down on our knees and pray and help ourselves, because God will not help us if we do not help ourselves. And one other thing. Mr. Massaquoi is a bad example for the left because he's a black actor from Hollywood. He's a conservative. He believes in ethics, morality, and values. He believes in sticking his neck out peacefully and legally. And that's a bad example, just like I'm a bad example as a conservative Jew. We're not supposed to be conservatives. And the very fact the FBI went after him is to set an example for other blacks not to come forward, not to express themselves, to cower in fear. And the black conservatives in this country are the most courageous people. It's many of the whites who are running for the exits and saying, take everything, leave me alone, I want to be in retirement, I don't want to do anything, I'm just going to enjoy myself. Well, you know what? Your children and grandchildren are going to be living shortly in a communist country. And we can see it already. So it's time for you, if you care about your children, grandchildren, and future generations, to join Freedom Watch at freedomwatchusa.org or do something proactive to save this country. It's not enough to watch Sean Hannity on Fox News. Mr. Massaquoi?
Thank you, Larry. First, I'd like to thank Larry Klayman, Freedom Watch, for taking this case and helping me out tremendously so that we are able to file against the United States, Director Christopher Wray, the FBI, and Special Agent Chad Warren, amongst others, who were one of 20 that came into my home June 10th at 5:45 in the morning, where they cuffed up my best friend in front of his two children, 3 and 7. They cuffed my 2 other roommates. And then when they finally came to me, they cuffed me with nothing but sweatpants on, took me outside like I was a common criminal. The only thing that I've ever been guilty of is drinking and driving, which I had to deal with on my own. That's the only thing. Every time I've been walking around here and going to any of these rallies since last June, we've been here, which I think is really apropos. We're here in Beverly Hills, where we first started seeing our First Amendment get taken away. When all we did was peacefully protest. And the first thing they did was they started with the parking, to block us from parking around here. They covered up the signs. Then they had their guys come here and try to give people citations for not wearing masks. Let's fast forward now to having these guys come into my home, arrest or cuff everyone up. I asked initially, where's the warrant? I need to talk to a lawyer. Multiple times. This is not what this is. Hold on a second. We'll get you a copy. Does that sound like it's right to anyone out there? But that's what happened to me and those in my house. When asked repeatedly, this is not a communist country as far as I know, and as far as most of us conservatives are fighting for. This is not a communist country, but yet this is how they treated me, and this is how they treated many others. After about 5 hours of interrogation, because what do you call it when they have guns out? Searching, photos of everything in my home. They took my computers, they took my cell phones, they took my hard drives. They also took my notebooks that I used, that was very personal to me in my recovery. They took 2 MAGA hats as well. And everything that they took, including the MAGA hats, but everything else that they took. In a world right now, after lockdowns in 2020, that we've created a world where we make our livings off our phones and our computers. They took that. And when asked why, and asked if we can get it back, they said, because I wasn't charged, I don't have the right to discovery. I want everyone to understand that. Because I wasn't charged, I don't get a right to know why they came into my house at 5:45 in the morning with guns drawn, as if I was running guns, trafficking children. Nothing. That's what they're willing to do to anybody right now we see that speaks out. The current president of the United States is telling people, this is what we're going to do. He's telling people to tell on your friends and your family members. This is what the current president of the United States is doing. He's telling people, if you stand up to us, you better have a nuke because you don't have a chance. That's the country that they're turning into. So we feel like we had to take a stand. I am so honored. Feel so blessed to have Larry reach out, Larry and Asher reach out in order to help us and help me set this up so that we can all now be the voice for everyone else. Maybe this is where I was supposed to be. And as part of this, if you feel fear out there, don't be. I'll take the hits. If this has happened to you, reach out. We know 72-year-old men, former vet, cuffed, ankles, waist, wrist in front of his grandchildren. For what? Nothing. We see guys who they were there as reporters, but because they were conservatives, they've got searched. All their camera equipment, all their hard drive gone. How is he going to make his living since March? That's what we're seeing. But there's nothing happening to those that burn down communities all across this country. Not one thing that we've seen right now. But peaceful protesters, truly peaceful protesters. They came in and stole my property. They didn't give me any type of ability to contact counsel or anything like that. They produced to me a page for the warrant. Not a document that we filled out here. They introduced one page to have AKs, everything, guns drawn, cuffed up, embarrassing my community. One page is all they felt like they needed to bring. If this is the country we want, we're going down a dark path. There is only one way this ends. I'm deciding with Larry's help, with Asher's help, and with everyone else out there, and especially if something's happened to you, please reach out. Let's do this. Let's take this country back. Let's stand up. It's for the people, by the people, but the people have to step up. Again, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
And we are trying to do it peacefully and legally using the tools that we have in our legal system. And that's why we pray that we get a judge who allows this case to go forward. Even the President of the United States, Donald Trump, I still consider him to be the President of the United States, did not get due process. We want due process, not just for Mr. Massaquoi, but for all Americans. We're all equal, and we should all be treated with respect and not trashed if we express a view that is against that of the leftist establishment that now has a total stranglehold on this country.
One last thing. President Donald Trump said it first. What we saw in 2016 when he said they're spying on me. We saw what happened to General Flynn that you think couldn't happen to him. You saw them raid Roger Stone. You saw them raid Giuliani. And you know what Trump said to all of us? If they can do this to me, they can do this to you. And here we are.
Here we are.
Question. We've watched over the years people like Jane Fonda going to the Capitol, committing the misdemeanor offense of trespass. Instead of being arrested, booked, fingerprinted, and photographed, they are given a citation and they are fined pocket change no matter how many times they come back and do it again. Why is these people on January 6th so much more vile and deserve so much more punishment and harassment than the other trespassers?
Well, I may add is that not everybody that was there on January 6th was inside the Capitol. Many were outside, many were on the mall. Okay, so there's not even an issue of trespass, but the bottom line is that the establishment of both political parties is fearful for themselves because they know that they have disserved the American people. And let's not kid ourselves. The Republicans, most of them, are in favor of rounding everybody up as well.
That's right.
And that's just simply a reality. And that's why the American people must now rise up themselves. My own personal opinion, and I say this in my personal capacity, is we need a new political party, more than one. The Republican Party's dead. It's lied to the American people. It's promised things to get reelected, sends out 25 emails a day to everyone asking for money, and that's all it's about, is money and power. And then you've got the Democrats that are just pure evil, and they're leftist, and the American people are left behind. And that's why we're trying to use the courts to get the job done. And we will always do it peacefully and legally. We have our citizens' grand juries, which we have a right to do, to hold people accountable, because no one in Washington will hold each other accountable. The Democrats and Republicans are like the National Football League, an American conference, and a national conference. They're all stuffing money into their pockets from lobbyists. It's like the temple in Jerusalem in old Hebraic days. And this is where we are. So let's move forward, cut the camera. We're done with this press conference. Okay. Do you want to say something, Brian? Yeah, I don't want to take too many questions here, but yours was a good one. Yeah, I want to introduce Brian Burks, who was in the House. He's a good friend of Siaka Massaquoi, and he's going to explain what happened to him. He had no involvement in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, and yet was cuffed in front of his kids. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, no, thanks, Larry. Thanks, Siaka.
Speak up.
Great to see everybody. Again, thanks, Larry. Great, Siaka. I was also in the house when Siaka described earlier. I was actually the person that opened the door. About 5:45, 5:50 in the morning, there was a very, very loud bang on the door with the FBI chant. After a second of waking up, I had two children in my bed with me, my 3-year-old and my 7-year-old sleep with me. So I turned around, saw that they were fine. I cautiously opened the door, showed my hands to guns drawn. I was told to turn around, back up. I was handcuffed, and then they proceeded to bring the other housemates, my 2 young children, basically not dressed, out of the home. And then they went in and got Siaka and brought him out. It was a surreal experience. I think to many people that are watching this, is probably an experience that is probably not too off in the future for a lot of people if we don't become vocal. And that's the only reason I wanted to say anything, was to reiterate something that Larry said, is to the men out there, to the dads, to the fathers, to the Christians, The reason you're not doing anything right now is because your tummy doesn't hurt. You're not hungry, so you're not motivated to do anything when your fellow brethren in your country are being persecuted. There might be a time in this country when food isn't available and you are going to become knowledgeable about the stuff that people like Larry have been telling you about for 30 years, the people like Siaka have been yelling at you about for years and years, and everybody else who's talking about these boogeymen that were crazy 2 years ago, 5 years ago, that are actually a reality right now. So I'm challenging you as someone who is involved in this. You have to get active for the sake of your family, for your friends, for your community. Or are we going to look back and this conference, this lawsuit are going to be for naught, because we're all going to be locked up, we're all going to be forcefully vaccinated, and it's all going to be against our will. So if we don't do this peacefully and legally right now, history shows us what's happening. And that's all I have to say.